Hello, ghouls and gals and fabulous pals. My name's Mona, and I really like books. And if you recall, I started at some point a video about all of my books with vampires. Now, I decided let's make a series with my books with popular monsters in them. And in my opinion, the second most popular monster after vampires is the one and only werewolf. Now, werewolves have been very popular in media, and usually werewolves and vampires get pinned to fight each other. We all remember the impact the Underworld series had on us. So, yeah, not to mention the Twilight one, even they continue that trend of werewolf versus vampire. So, yeah, it's a fun theme, it's a fun subject, in my opinion. So, I thought let's talk a bit about my werewolf books from my personal collection, good and bad. Now, funny enough, you could argue that the werewolf is the oldest documented monster, depending on who you ask and how you interpret certain texts. I'm saying that because when we say werewolf, don't think of the Hollywood one turning on full moon and being, what's the word? Uh, Sensitive to silver, so to say. If you think about it, the oldest werewolf that we have, again, depending if you see it that way, is actually in the Epic of Gilgamesh of all places. That's the oldest written text that we currently have discovered. Fingers crossed that we find some more. But in the Epic of Gilgamesh, there is some point in the story where the goddess Inanna or Ishtar kind of hits on Gilgamesh because she likes half mortals. And Gilgamesh, to try to get out of this sticky situation of refusing a goddess, tries to bring arguments why she's not the best choice for him. One of his arguments being you weren't very nice to your former lovers or to your exes. One of her exes was apparently a shepherd that for some reason she got tired of or got annoyed with, and she actually transforms the poor guy into a wolf, and the guy gets ripped to shreds by his own dogs. Quite sad. It doesn't really help Ishtar. She still gets upset with Gilgamesh, but that's a different story altogether. Another famous werewolf where we actually get the word lycanthropy from is King Lycaon from Arcadia. We have very different versions, or diverse versions of the story. We have them from Ovid, Pausanias, who else? Pseudo Apollodorus, even Hesiod, who wrote about it. Basically, the story is, in a nutshell, the simplest form. Zeus comes to Arcadia because he hears that the king there, Lycaon, isn't a very nice man. He gets there. Lycaon doesn't believe Zeus is a god, so what does he do? He, in some versions, kills his son, or just kills a random guy, or in very extreme versions, he kills one of Zeus's sons, which I'm like, why the hell would you do that? And basically feeds the killed person, whoever that may be, depending on the myth's version, to Zeus. Zeus, of course, doesn't eat that, and in Greek mythology, cannibalism and human sacrifice is a big no-no. So he gets very upset, and in many versions, Lycaon gets transformed into a wolf. So that would be the first Greek werewolf. In other versions, all of his sons, which sometimes are 50, they all get transformed, so they are quite a big pack of werewolves. But yeah, those are the earliest, oldest stories about werewolves. So safe to say, it's quite a popular theme in fiction, legends, so on and so forth. Even in Europe, we have a lot of legends. In Romania, we have a word for werewolves, which is vârcolac, which is very similar to other words in Europe about such creatures. Sometimes they can be interchangeable and mean even witch or vampire, so that's a very interesting topic if you want to look for that. I'll link in the description of the video some videos that I think are short and sweet and fun about the werewolf myth if you want to continue on that. But let's talk about some books, because some are shit, some are fun, and since we talked about the myth, I'll start the same way I started the vampire one, with a non-fiction recommendation. And out of all of these books I have here, this is the one I want people to read the most. Sorry, my ring light doesn't really like this one. This is the Book of Werewolves by Sabine Baring-Gould. I hope it looks okay. This is one of the best studies about the werewolf myth and not necessarily just the werewolf myth, shape-shifting in general. Because if you read about such myths, you realize that people have believed that members of their communities can change shapes. It's very cool. And different animals. And it's really, really, really cool. And if I just can find the chapters. So he goes through the history, basically, of the myth. So it starts from ancient times with Ovid, Pliny, all of those good things from Greek mythology and Roman mythology. It continues with the werewolves from the north, like Nordic myths or Scandinavia, because the Vikings had their own version of a werewolf or a shapeshifter. It goes on through the Middle Ages. It also goes on through the witch trials or criminals or serial killers who are believed to be werewolves. And it continues on with the whole history of the myth and what we can learn from them. It's a really, really cool book. I highly recommend it, especially if you're interested in shape-shifting and legends and folk tales about werewolves and shapeshifters. I think it's absolutely awesome. It's a great, great book. Read it if you're interested in the subject. And this would be the only nonfiction that I have. Let's start with the fiction. And this one, I think if I show you the cover, you're kind of gonna figure it out. It's, I believe in English, it's Never Cry Werewolf. Yeah, Never Cry Werewolf. It's a 2009 novel. Just look at this cheesy cover with the girl. It's basically a story about a teenage girl who's sent to a camp by her evil stepmother, or I don't know, whatever, and she meets there a werewolf. It's really short, really cheesy. It is a bit fun, harmless. If you want to relive your childhood or your teenage angst years, try this. I just thought I should show it since it's in my collection. Ooh, the next one. This is The Wolf Gift by Anne Rice. If you ever read an Anne Rice book, this is basically Anne Rice with werewolves, so yeah. It's not much of a surprise in the way it's written. It's very gothic, sexy. The werewolf, of course, is treated or reimagined in a more erotic a bit way, so it's very neat. Of course, everyone is beautiful and rich, and there's a just happy ending with no consequences. There is a lot of blood and action in some areas, but the big minus for me was that there weren't many bad consequences to characters, which I thought was unrealistic, surprisingly, since we're talking about the werewolf book. But still, if you want to see Anne Rice's take on the werewolf myth, I say read it. It's fun if you forgive some things, or if you're used to Anne Rice's, I don't know, fixations, so to say, in fiction. But yeah, this actually has like a Christmas special, The Wolves of Midwinter. I read it. Honestly, I prefer that one. That one is way more bloody, way more sexy in many ways, and I thought it was way more cool. And that one also has a ghost and a pagan Christmas thing, which I thought that was absolutely awesome. It's actually pagan combined with Christianity, but it's still fucking cool. So if you want to try that, I highly recommend the second book, but you kind of have to read this one first to understand what the hell is going on. I don't know. I say give these a go. They're quite fun. It's Anne Rice. What can you do? Ooh, this one, I have both books here that I have in Romanian because they're just fucking ridiculous. This is Kelly Armstrong, and this is Bitten, and this is Stolen, but in Romanian they're translated so poorly. Instead of being Bitten, it's called Full Moon in Romanian, Lună Plină, and this one, instead of being Stolen, it's called The Second Full Moon, A Doua Lună Plină. I don't know why they decided to translate it so wrong, but anyhow, the books, these one are about a woman called Elena, who's the only female werewolf in the world. If you think that that would be necessarily, how should I put this, philosophically engaging, or they would try to figure out there in the book why this is the case and so on and so forth, you know, make it a bit more interesting and investigative. It's a lot of, how should I put this, relationships, drama, The second book is just boring and you get a lot more creatures in that. But yeah, it's you'd think it would be a bit more entertaining considering the subject matter. They did make a TV show because that's how I found out about these books. I saw the TV show Bitten on Netflix. I think it's still up there. I'll put a picture with the TV show. I honestly thought the TV show was way better. They do fix some things in the book that are just problematic as Jesus Christ. And the second season that basically shows the second book is way more entertaining. The second book is so goddamn boring. And it ends so briefly that I honestly searched on Google if the Romanian edition missed a few pages. So yeah, honestly, if you're not bothered by a lot of mistakes that the author made, like the woman does not know math, I swear to God, me neither, but I'm not trying to put that in the book, but still. And there's a lot of this, I'll put a word in. It's in the first book. There's a scene that they try to make it a bit more romantic, or the alpha doing his thing or something like that, or her mate doing what he has to. It's very uncomfortable. The show did it. The show fixed those stupid things. Yeah, it made it more interesting. I say check out the show. It's honestly better. But yeah, it's still more entertaining than this piece of shit. This is Shiver by Maggie Stevewater. I have two books. The two books, I don't remember what's the second one, but it doesn't matter. This is the most boring piece ass shit book about a werewolf I've read in my entire life. Honestly, it tries to be Twilight with werewolves, but it's just so goddamn boring. The angst is just annoying. And I recently reread Twilight. It's not the angst. I can live with that if it's done entertaining. This is just boring. All the neat werewolf shit, you don't see that. You just hear how much these two kids love each other, but they barely know each other, and they barely do anything. They just sit on their asses. And funny enough, the author does make an interesting mythology in the books. So the werewolves have to, no matter what, become wolves during the winter and go into the woods. But as time goes on, and as often as they do that, at some point they cannot change back. Because apparently they do change back when spring comes, back to human form. But at some point, apparently in their lives, they get stuck in the werewolf form. And she doesn't do anything with that. It's so fucking annoying. Ugh. That one, honestly, don't read it. I just thought I should put a public message out there that shitty book exists. Yeah. The next one, this is a Laurel K. Hamilton book. If you saw my vampire one, you know this woman wrote about 30 books with a lot of supernatural creatures. And apparently she also has some books that just concentrate on werewolves. And this is Blue Moon, an Anita Blake vampire hunter novel. And as I said in my previous video, if you read one Anita Blake book, you read all of them. It's the same style, same shit. If you really care about the ongoing story, read them from start to finish, but goddamn, 30 books. Good luck to you. This one is about a werewolf, and considering how the blurb starts, you can kind of figure out what you're gonna get. Richard was an alpha werewolf. It was his only serious flaw. We'd broken up after I'd seen him eat somebody. Yeah, that kind of a book. And it's quite long, so I haven't read this one yet. I'm waiting for the right mood to read it, so yeah, I'll let you know about it if you're curious. I do miss doing a rant video, especially after the Dune one. Oh, that one was so cathartic. Recommend it. Check it out. Next one. Ooh, this one is awesome. This is Tinder by Sally Gardner and David Roberts. This one is so cool. It's about a dude. Let me see if you can see that. The illustrations are amazing. It's about a dude, Otto, who returns from the 30-year war, and he's wounded, and some shaman dude fixes him up, gives him some magic dice, and just throws him in a journey of some fever dream of fairy tale references, I swear to God. I think the book is inspired by the Tinder box, like loosely inspired by the loosely inspired. Mona, learn English. It's loosely inspired by The Tinderbox by Hans Christian Andersen, but loose. It's very dark, very gothic, very cool, and there's some werewolf or werewolves that are basically following the protagonist. And I don't want to give any spoilers because it's a very neat story. I highly recommend it. I'll put the cover here because I don't have the dust jacket. I don't know where it is. But yeah, highly recommend it. Awesome. And lastly, it would be... Not lastly, sorry. I have two more that I have to say that are not here in book form. This is The Last Werewolf by Glenn Duncan. I read it, I think, 2 years ago or something like that, or last year. I love this book. This is one of my favorite books ever. This is, as the title say, about the last werewolf that exists in the world. And the dude is suicidal. And he wants to go out with a bang, but a lot of people don't want him to die for different reasons. Others do want him to die, but not by his own hands. And at some point, something happens in the story that changes his mind. I don't want to say what, but it's really cool. It's everything I wanted in a freaking werewolf book. Please keep in mind, you have to be 18 at least to read this. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of sex in it. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And there's not just werewolves. And I don't mean to spoil it, but after I read this, I learned that this beautiful thing is actually a trilogy. These are the next books. I cannot wait to read them. I want to marathon the whole thing. Now, I don't count necessarily these books yet, because I haven't read them. I'm not sure if they still have werewolves as the main protagonists, because other creatures are mentioned and show up. But the first book, definitely read it. It's awesome. It's very good. It's one of the best werewolf stories I have ever read, and it's everything I ever wanted in a werewolf book. Action, blood, and sex. Awesome. And I have two books that I don't have in physical form. One of them I do recommend, the other one I need to mention because I read it and I want to tell people don't fucking read it. The one I do recommend that you read is the one and only Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King. And if you can, get the version that has Bernie Wrightson's illustrations. I'll put some pictures. I love that story. It's basically a werewolf that kills people once a month, and it's called the Cycle of the Werewolf because it goes through the whole cycle of the year, all 12 months. And in the version that has Bernie's illustrations, it has an illustration for each month, and it's really cool. There is also a movie adaptation after the book. I don't remember the name of the movie. It's different from the book. It's pretty cool, that movie as well. But the story is really neat, and the twist of who the werewolf is also pretty cool. It's short and sweet. It's quite a short story, but I highly recommend it because it's Stephen King with werewolves. So yeah. The last one, I think it's called Beast Nights or something like that. It's from Chelsea Queen Yarbrough. She wrote the werewolf book. And, you know, I mentioned her in the vampire books, that she has that beautiful gothic series about the Countess Saint Germain that's a vampire. And I don't understand for the life of me why she takes an army vet in this story of a werewolf and basically uses his PTSD to argue his anger and shit of being a werewolf. It's quite annoying, sad, and worst of all, boring. This is one of the most boring werewolf books I have ever read. I do not recommend it at all, but I thought I should put it out there because I want people to avoid it, honestly. It isn't worth your time, and it's so poorly written. I was freaking shocked. I thought it was the Romanian edition that I have. I checked up then in the book in English. No. It's bad, unfortunately. So I'll just stick to Count of Saint Germain and to other books that I mentioned here that are great. So yeah, these are all the werewolf books, plus the ones that are not in in book form here in paperback or hardback. And yeah, highly recommend them. Pretty cool books indeed.